There are few ways things can go absolutely right, and there are a multitude of ways things can go absolutely wrong. The world is tended opportunistically to have much more occurrences of misfortune than it is tilted to have opportunity for fortune. It's a unitary pursuit, the instantiation of fortuitous, um, radiant possibility pools, really reaching for the the spherical expansion of a certain possibility state. This is already a case under the model, but reaching for its original description, where it was referring to it as the field of possibility. There it is, the field of possibility. That but those to augment that field of possibility into optimistic bent versus non-optimistic bent, and that's a unitary procedure. That's a unitary pursuit. The world is designed much more to have moments that are away from the standard than it is to. So then, one who operates with the requirement of absolute tranquility, and what happens to the world, given that's a common goal. But since reality is realistic, that is not as it occurs. It occurs in a certain another way. And meaning in this case is the effort of refreshment to be intentional about one's position, about how one's results, but scratch results, but being vigilant, being attentive, scrutinizing what one contribution is, and singularizing contribution to a unit of output, and inspecting, examining these units of output for their quality. But what is the reference measurement? How or against what base experience or other experiences reference for the quality on the scale of being and concerning with the dynamic of the whole, and contributing their efforts to lessen and lessen what should be lesser, and increase what should be increased. But what should be increased are these things standard, their goodness, their love, and what should be decreased. These are things of suffering and unnecessary suffering, precisely, especially discerning between those two, hyper discerning between those two. What exactly is it that it becomes mechanistic? It's attenuation is the word, reaching for, but not grasping on its definition, as one could wish. But in what way is one deciding which is which, and how is one furthering their play in a longitudinal observation of what happens to be the end goal of each of these applications? So it happens here, and it returns to another moment in a different case. Maybe it does generate happiness as it goes on, but its initial occurrence did not fit that bill, did not fit that description. There are there are multiple ways that the war could unfold, especially in this case, and mainly to the whole is it's one being able to supervise, maybe oversee, one being able to oversee their units of output, and what especially are these things, can they be grasped on as such? It happens to the world when each syllable comes out, when each bundles of sound waves are expressed. It's in all these areas where one is responsible for a certainty. The responsibility is congregated under the constitution of a self. It's within the self first that is responsible. If the self is standing into a sword, but yet the sword is not part of the body, but one wields it and then extends their agency to the sword, to a hammer, or to they extend their agency to the words. But words, and these are all tools, and pliers and shovels. They are tools to change something, to have something be done. And there are multiple ways things can be to be done, from decaying to the falling of a leaf, to the changing of a cloud one to another, and for the coming of a rainbow to a certain type of earthquake to tsunamis. There are too many to mention and go in the list, but grasping on the centrality, everything that one can be traced for responsibility for happens from a preceder, having from a case of behind consciousness. There are movements and operations without brain, because the world functions itself at a certain level where that is not required. The apparatus of navigation is not required. But in other ways, it can be mimicked to get a similar result. That one can navigate without this divine instrument. Yeah, but it's responsible. It's what the self is. So it's not a tree that's blamed for a leaf that fell on one shoulder on this sunny afternoon in winter. Sunny afternoon in winter. But it's not responsible for itself. For that, it's not a sign of blame. But with the quality of a premeditative candidate like that, the human, then he with the self now, then he can become one can become suspicious and unsettled about the way one chooses to move and move around and come around. But from inside, there is as if free will. So there is this sensation of a capability to edit. There's sensation of one's capability to edit how to operate, how to internally operate, or what is the environment, what is the community that's inside the mind that is responsible for your thinking and decision making. And what are these variables represented as neurocortically? That is just a chemical story that precedes the moment just before one exerts the agency, and the moment just after one exerts the agency. And what is the thinking doing the exertion? That moment itself is a glimpse of withdrawal or zooming out. That in moments of exertion, one is caught by a flow, and they are able to encapsulate these fleeting images by saying a word like by creating joint sum of words that carried by the flow or caught was caught in it or let go or let loose, and then in a way that when one is moving and rapidly bursting, not to add a final the now at the end of the sentence, but rapidly leaving out the verb that in the adjective and adverb, they are rapidly bursting themselves in that moment, and they're carried away. That's what's on the mind. It's not in a state of continuous or of continuous rechecking or fact checking or proof checking or reevaluating. It's not constantly in there. When it's decided, and now the action potential is gone. But one can create sub personalities, I'll call them psychotechnologies instead of sub-personalities, to inhibit these movements. And much of the realization that comes from authentic actualization for the typical subject, it's inhibition. It's inhibition into certain, it's inhibition into from or away from certain lines of action, that are not in accordance with one principles. Yeah, there is that deviation, but most is sourced from inhibition. It's what it is fed in. But that inhibition comes from reasoning. That inhibition comes from questioning. That is that the right thing? Is that really the way to say it? Because men, or some others are. Is that the right thing? Is that the rule to say, do you really want to do this? Have you thought this through long enough? Yeah, sometimes this can be inhibiting, the inhibitory, resurrection or rescue, or the inhibitory rescue, when it comes in itself and it becomes itself can become a hindrance, because then it holds back the agent from carrying out and fulfilling something feels. But it gets murky into in networks into other places, but rather to return to the wayside. That's the fact that comes with authentic actualization, that it's inhibitory into the mind. What is the unit output? How is that going to be designated? how is it going to be designated? What label is going to be given to it? What further result is going to be given to it? And how certain how certain are you of your calculations in that moment? So it gets into different places, and it does different things. Yet it's a unitary pursuit to instantiate these certain modes, these modus operandum, modes of operation, modes of a certain existential mode of a certain operation. It is designed. It is designed for the epiphany. The epiphany comes with its accessories and the network in all the facets that one could be networked in, one could be rooted in, so that from the macroscopic to the mainstream, it filters away to the minority within the minority, and well, it's one for the pessimist and the optimist. That pessimism, of course, it's not pessimism against everything in the world. It's a certain disposition, similarly to optimism, to have a view where both things are right. Mind of cones, or the ability for one to see certain colors from others, optical illusions. The world itself is illusory and elusive, and enigmatic. So these qualities should be inputted into the factoring of it when one is cultivating, germinating, spawning a model. And the model happens naturally because it's in response to whatever already exists out there. That exists first, and then there is the observer. But the thing perceived supersedes the observer. In this particular case, because we know we come in generationally, and we know we can always trace back to a moment. We can always trace our theta, our lineage backwards, meaning that as we're tracing backwards, there was a pre-existence that preceded us, that happened, that we're not a part of, that we're not aware of, at least no, we're not aware of in a way that we're aware of this moment that we are present in the felt reality. So we always see these distinction and discrepancy in our pictorial timeline, to say, or strip that, not the name of it, but having it in Kodaks and Odin cameras, where there's a strip of films where they're all negatives. There's a strip of negative or spool that goes in. So that is the reference referring to. That picture is not exist. It's in media res that one comes into existence, and then from there now they can be able to spread off their wings, and they can be spread off their tentacles into the future, into the past, to be able to absorb in and transmit this information to gain a richer hold on your inquiry. And this inquiry is driven by the curiosity. The curiosity is a byproduct of the participation, the observer's participation. So it roots in many and in different directions. It's an interesting topic to be concerned with and congregated and how to around, residing to the end, but being devoted keenly on this central topic of a unitary pursuit and instantiating certain moments by the agreement of its collaborates.